What's going on YouTube? Nathan back with another video presentation. Hope everyone had a great weekend. Hope everyone's off to a great week. Hope everyone's staying safe. Before we get into the video, there's a few things I need to say up front that will serve as appetizers before we get into the main entree of the video. You know, I made a video, I think it was back in June. Made a few videos actually, where I was talking about, particularly when it came to sports, and how we have players, coaches, owners, commissioners, player associations. There's a divide. What I mean is a divide. There seems to be an issue where guys cannot seem to understand that even though you're taking a risk to play in these in this time that we're living in, when I look at the players and the absorbent amount of money that they make, one would argue that, these guys are the main provider. They're putting food on their family's table. They believe that they can hold themselves personally responsible for what they do on and off the court or field or whatever it may be. They may also be an argument where they believe that they can get through a season. They can overcome the obstacles. They can try to, they're going to try to paint this narrative. See, hey, listen, we got a whole season out of the way during COVID. When you look at Major League Baseball, they, for one, played 60 games. For one, they couldn't agree on how many games they wanted to play. You look at the NBA, the tremendous job that the Players Association, Michelle Roberts, Chris Paul, and how that wasn't in the WNBA too. I'm not going to forget them as well. That it was a successful bubble, even though I questioned why players were coming and going as they pleased without having some type of consequence. As you see the title of the video, I have been sitting back really since Saturday, and what really drove me to make this video was I was on my phone Saturday night, and I had saw on Bleachers Report that the Denver Broncos have 3 quarterbacks that are on the COVID list and they can't play. The Denver Broncos reached out to the league and said, hey, listen, can we have one of our coaches? I cannot think off the top of my head what the position of the coach is, but he knows the playbook. Can he be on the field with the offense? The league said no. What does the NFL do? But what's comical is that the Denver Broncos had to get a guy off their practice squad who was a former college quarterback. And I I gave him respect where respect is earned. If you do your just look at his background and what what he's been doing to try to help his team in some way to win. However, the fact that the Denver Broncos came onto that field against the New Orleans Saints and completed only one pass and two interceptions were thrown. Right there, we have a problem. When I'm looking at with the San Francisco 49ers, for 5 weeks, they have to play in Arizona because the state of California, the way the cases have been, they can't play there. When I'm looking at the Ravens versus the Pittsburgh Steelers, Baltimore Ravens, this is now 3 weeks that the game has been pushed back to where now the game is being played on Wednesday as of right now, when that could possibly change. When you're having the only team as of today that has no positive test is the Seattle Seahawks. When I'm looking at other teams and the fact that we have a problem, because let's understand something. These guys, I know someone's going to give the argument, hey, they were given the choice. Are they in or are they out? I understand that. The same thing you can say with Major League Baseball, the same thing you can say with the NBA, hockey, doesn't matter. Listen, these guys, the window to make this money that they're getting in the NFL is short. And again, as I said in my introduction, some of these guys are main provider, or most of these guys are the main provider for their families, put food on the table, pay the bills, etc. But when I look at the way these past, I will really say now, really since the season began, how we are seeing, again, no training camp, no preseason, no preseason, the amount of injuries. And now we're seeing cases after cases after cases of COVID pile up in the NFL. Meanwhile, here it is again, the NFL. So we're talking owners, Roger Goodell, and the Players Association. And the players too, in some respect. Because again, they agreed. They opted in to play. No matter how many players you're down, we are going to get this season out of the way. There are 5 more weeks. And in these next 5 weeks, anything can happen. When I look at the fact that here it is, I believe the Ravens, as of Monday, I think only have 23 active players on the roster. And I believe they expanded the practice squad to 16. But again, I want to ask a question, and I want to ask the NFL players. This question. I tried to ask. I asked a question when I made the video with Major League Baseball. with the number of cases that is occurring on each team, you said you opted in to play this season, okay? What is wrong with a bubble system? Because remember, these guys didn't want a bubble system. They said that they can take personal. They want to hold themselves personally responsible for what they do on and off the field. We don't know what these guys are doing on and off the field. They could be going to a friend's house, a party, a club. I don't know what these guys are doing after the game, after practice. I don't know what they do. But when you have, once again, no accountability, no initiative being taken to say, hey, you know what? We need to really rally around the situation. I'm going to say it right here, right now. The NFL season needs to be halted for probably I would say 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks tops, because what I am seeing teams that are struggling without key players. When I look at, again, the Denver Broncos was a prime example, because here it is, they have to go on the field without a starting quarterback, and the quarterback is one of the most important positions on the field, and they're going against the Saints. That just doesn't look good. And mind you, this is a product that the fans are seeing. Mind you, fans can't be there, even though at some stadiums, but mostly that no fans are allowed. We have that. We also have guys. I'm concerned about their mental status. How are these guys handling being, for example, look at the Arizona Cardinals. Your Kyler Murray, your Larry Fitzgerald, your DeAndre Hopkins, etc. You have to, no, excuse me, not the Cardinals, I apologize, the 49ers, Dabo Sweeney, Richard Sherman, etc. have to play in Arizona for the next 5 weeks. Think about the fact that they now have to be away from their families. They potentially they will have to miss Christmas. Because again, the NFL said, listen, the show must go on. Y'all down, you got 5-6 players out, you have to play without them. This is the NFL. But then again, I'm looking at the players and I'm saying, hey, wait a minute. Y'all opt in, but you chose not to have a system in place, particularly a bubble. Look at the NBA. The NBA showed you how it's done. Again, even though I had questions about why players were coming in and out of the bubble as they please without having some type of consequence. When I look at the WNBA, a primary example that sticks out to me was Brittany Griner. She, from what I'm understanding, she really, since all this started, was uncomfortable even being down there, and then left. I feel like, okay, if you're going to leave, then we're not going to pay you for the rest of the season. We're going to pay you we're going to pay half your salary, half your contract, but the rest of it, no, because you played half a season. To me, when you commit to something like this, you have to, one, have a plan, and one, we are counting on you to be responsible, wear the mask, socially distance, enforce those rules when you're off the field. Well, look at the Baltimore Ravens, for example. I don't know what these guys are doing on and off the field. You have Mark Ingram, Lamar Jackson, Willie Snead, Calais Campbell, Mark Andrews, etc. These are key starters. These are key players. We look at the Pittsburgh Steelers. By the way, just a side note, I think it's very, very ignorant. You see, social media, you know, I thought especially with the NFL, I always considered it to be a brotherhood. But when you have players that go on, athletes, NFL players for any team, doesn't matter, that go on social media and talk about how the NFL can't keep their stuff together because here we have a team that doesn't know how to control their COVID list. Well, a staff member who was around most of these players had it, and there was strict discipline. But see, you have to be careful when you make comments like that because you have to understand that could happen to your team as well. Regardless of how the NFL season has looked. I mean, I'm not, and it's not just because of COVID. I mean, look at the way, team injuries this year have been horrendous. Torn ACLs here, a broken ankle here, dislocated shoulder, severe concussion, injuries after injury. This has just been a bad year for football. I have never seen this many injuries like that before. And again, I blame the fact that there was no preseason. Training camp was they needed more training camp. These guys were not ready to play football. They just weren't. So again, the reason why I want to go back to my point where I said that the NFL season needs to be halted immediately. Because when you have a team like the Denver Broncos, they don't have a quarterback. That game needs to be postponed. Forfeited, that's not fair to that team. That's not fair to a guy like Drew Luck or Von Miller. I'm just giving those guys an example. That's not fair to them because three of their quarterbacks, who I don't know who they were around, I don't know what they were doing, were all put on the COVID list. Well, I look at the Pittsburgh Steelers versus the Baltimore Ravens. That game needs to be postponed. When I see games being pushed back a day or a week, a few days or a week later, this shows me that the NFL is does just one, money, two, does not care about the health of each individual player, three, shows me that the NFL is going to do whatever it takes to complete this season, regardless of how many cases, whether it's 0 to 3,200. And again, I understand that this is the risk that these players took. But for Major League, again, next season, y'all might want to think about having a bubble system. Because I hate to say it. Y'all said, this is what they said. We can handle ourselves individually responsible. They believe that they can hold their own selves personally accountable for what they do off the field. They said this. A lot of Major League Baseball players, for example, Buster Posey, who had adopted twin girls, didn't want to be away from them. The number thing reason I heard was, I don't want to be away from my family, and I understand that. But again, you opted into playing this season, so that needs to be right there. That needs to be the first thing. Who's in? Who's out? You're not playing. Or are you playing? That's number one. Number two, we must agree on a bubble system, some type of protocol. Because to prevent this, what you're seeing right now, happening next year, there needs to be some type of protocol. There needs to be some type of plan. Because what I see right now, this is a disaster waiting to happen. Well, the disaster's already happened, but the timer's ticking. I said it in that Kemar Silverand video. See, the media is already painting this narrative. Well, the narrative's already been painted. See, hey, listen, you know, even though that they are playing in the midst of a pandemic, they're not safe neither. See, it's not really safe to play sports during a pandemic. That's ammunition for days. All I'm saying is, at the end of the day, we have to think about the players' safety, their safeties, their health, and understand that, listen, you might have to, go, you know what? Sadly enough, for the 49ers who can't play in San Francisco, Santa Clara, they can't play in Santa Clara County for 5 weeks. Have to be away from their families. Because you know what? I guarantee you, in the midst of them being told that, I'm sure that there was a meeting. I'm sure that there were some players that were upset. And I'm pretty sure they all said, you know what? I do what I gotta do. I gotta put food on my family's table. I'm just I want to go to my next point where I brought up the mental health of all this. How some of these guys are handling this. Guys, that could go on a plane, that are afraid to go on a plane, that could get it. Because mental health and COVID-19 has shown people have committed suicide, people have gone into deep depression, again, due to losing a loved one, losing a job, etc. I don't know what the mental state of these guys, their current state of mind, particularly when they have to be flexible, as the league said in the beginning of the year. You guys have to be willing to be flexible. Okay, that's fine. But what about you as owners, as commissioner, as a players association? Where's the flexibility on your end? Because what these 32 teams need to do, they need to get all of their eggs in a basket and try to get a hold of of a situation that is completely unraveled. And that's what people are not understanding. Well, what I mean by that is people look at it like, I believe, who was it? Excuse me. Steve Young, Hall of Famer. I'm a fan of Steve Young. But Steve Young was saying something along the lines of, well, I don't understand, why these guys just can't, expand the season. Expand it. You're talking about putting guys more at risk of getting injured and more cases. So right there, that argument goes out the window. So what I'm saying is that right now, as of December 1st, the NFL season needs to be halted immediately for 2 to 3 weeks to get each team's eggs in a basket. Because what you're seeing right now, you're going to... again, I said there's 5 weeks left. Anything could happen. And what I'm seeing right now, the timer is soon to go off. I really hope that lessons from this season will be learned and applied for next season. A bubble has to be in place. It should have been in place from the jump. If the players don't like it, don't play. Because again, you opted into this. There has to be some type of plan. There has to be some type of safety plan in place, so you don't have what you see with the Ravens, for example, happen. Especially when they're in the midst of of trying to make the playoffs. When you're not the Tennessee Titans, where you can't play for a whole week. Where you're the San Francisco 49ers, where you have to play in another state for 5 weeks. There has to be some type of system in place. This has to be. But until that happens, until Roger Goodell, the NFL Players Association, owners, and the players understand that, you're going to see the situation unravel even more. I'm sorry to say that, but it's the truth. These are different times. And I hate to say it, but if the NFL talked about, I just said it earlier, the NFL talked about being flexible. Hey, y'all need to be flexible with this. Because I don't know about y'all, but I'm not comfortable. I wouldn't be comfortable being in a locker room and I'm going like, well, could he have it, or could she have it? You just don't. You have those. I hate to say it, but those kind of things go in a person's mind. We have to start thinking about that. We have to start thinking about each other's health and each other's safety. But I'm telling you, Saturday, I really wanted to make this video. But I said, let me wait because I want to see what the NFL is going to do come Monday. When I saw that they postponed the Raven and Steeler game again, they were supposed to play Tuesday, and now they're playing Wednesday mid-afternoon, and it had to rearrange other games. I said, this is a recipe for disaster. This is a recipe for failure. Because I think it's unfair to then put, like Major League Baseball did towards the playoffs. Let's have a bubble system then. When you could have said, no, either we have a bubble system implemented for the whole season or no baseball. Hey, sometimes you have to put your foot down. Roger Goodell, hey, listen, owners, if they're not willing to implement a bubble system, if they're not willing to at least understand what needs to be done, there's no season. But that's all I wanted to say in the video. I really hope the NFL really gets it together, because the way I have seen this whole season, from injuries to now the amount of cases of COVID that have just been steadily increasing, I'm concerned for the league, I'm concerned for the players, I'm concerned for the fans. Because the fans, they're subjected to seeing this kind of stuff. I feel bad for the Denver fans those that are fans of the Denver Broncos, because they had to watch that to see that they had a team that had no quarterback, and the league made them go out there and play. That game should have been forfeited. I feel bad for those fans. I feel bad for the fans for the Steelers that now have to wait a whole nother couple days for the game against the Ravens. Same thing for the Raven fans. I feel bad for the 49ers that now have to go and play in another state. It's a mess. Now I'm going to leave it here. But be on the lookout possibly for another part, I lost count. But be on the lookout for that. But with that being said, I'm out. Peace. Stay up.